Imagine waking up one morning, walking into your bathroom, and just looking in the mirror. But instead of your own tired eyes staring back, you see the eyes of an absolute stranger.
Oh, that is just pure nightmare fuel.
Right. It's terrifying. And it doesn't even stop with the reflection. Suddenly you remember this stranger's childhood. You remember like their first kiss, their deepest regrets, the exact layout of a house you have never stepped foot in.
All of it just flooding in.
Exactly. All of it is playing out in your mind as clearly as what you had for breakfast. And you try to push the thoughts away, but the memories are so visceral, so undeniable, that you actually forget who you are for a moment.
That is such a profound loss of self.
It really is. That terrifying feeling of your own identity being overwritten, that is the psychological core of what we are unpacking today. Welcome to our deep dive into the source material. Today, we are exploring a really pivotal sequence from D.P. Kirk's novel San Vitae, The Awakening.
Yeah, specifically we are tearing into chapter 26 today.
Yes, chapter 26, Revelation of a Shared Memory. Because, honestly, it pulls off one of the most audacious genre swaps I think I've seen in modern fiction.
It really does. It's incredible.
Our mission today is to look at how this story shifts from a gritty, dark fantasy into hard sci-fi within a single hallucination, and the devastating psychological toll that takes on our protagonist.
Which is such a masterful subversion of reader expectations, you know?
Yeah.
Usually when a story relies on a massive twist like that, the author risks breaking the implicit contract they made with the audience.
Oh, for sure. People feel cheated.
Right. But Kirk manages to use the protagonist's fractured mental state to translate the entire mythology of the world. To really understand the mechanics of this chapter, though, we have to look at the fragile psychology of the main character, Kurien.
So to set the stage for you, we find Kurien in what appears to be a bleak, post-apocalyptic wasteland. He's a Sanite, which is basically a magic user, someone who can manipulate a biological energy force called Vitae.
But he isn't some triumphant fantasy hero.
No, not at all. He has just endured 12 straight years of memory-erasing torture from these Inquisitors. For over a decade, his mind was so broken that he hallucinated an entire life. He believed he was living peacefully with a wife, even imagining they had a child together.
Which, from a psychological standpoint, is a brilliant application of false memory syndrome on a narrative level. In cognitive science, we know that the human brain abhors a vacuum.
It has to fill the gaps.
Exactly. When Kurien's real memories were violently stripped away, his psyche constructed a sanctuary. It built this false reality to protect him from the sheer trauma of his torture. Waking up to realize that the family he loved for 12 years never actually existed, it completely deletes his mental firewall. He has zero defenses left.
And now he's out in this ruined world, just completely raw, traveling with his newly blood-bonded companion, Sharina. And this blood bond, I want to clarify for you, it isn't just a fantasy trope here.
No, it's highly mechanical.
Right. Mechanically, their nervous systems are essentially Wi-Fi tethered to one another. So if she feels intense fear, his heart starts racing. If he is injured, she feels the phantom pain.
They are hyperlinked on a biological level, and they're trying to survive in a world filled with factions like the New Covenant and these terrifying mutated beasts called anti-Zans.
There's a lot to deal with.
It's overwhelming, and the environment itself is actively hostile to Kurien's broken mind. There's this massive structure known as the Spire that has erupted from the ruins of a nearby city.
Rwanda, right?
Yes, Rowan. And the Spire is emitting a constant wave of green energy. This energy suppresses his Vitae abilities, but more importantly, it acts as a catalyst for new invasive hallucinations.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Instead of a TV remote suddenly changing channels, think of Kurien's brain like a corrupted hard drive. He was tortured so severely that his antivirus software, his mental firewall, was completely deleted.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks. Now, this environmental radiation from the Spire is acting like a malicious peer-to-peer network, downloading a massive encrypted black box of data straight into his visual cortex. Which makes me wonder, how does he even function? If your brain is actively downloading someone else's reality, how do you fight off monsters in your own?
Well, honestly, he barely does. He operates purely on the sympathetic adrenaline from his blood bond with Sharina. But what's fascinating here is how the author uses that corrupted hard drive, not just for character angst, but as the primary vehicle for world building.
Oh, it's so smart.
Kurien's broken mind is the only vessel cracked enough to receive the truth of how their world actually ended. His hallucinations aren't just random firing synapses, they are the literal key to unlocking the suppressed history of the planet.
Which brings us to the moment where the static finally clears. In Chapter 26, the download finishes and the file opens. Kurien is plunged headfirst into a crystal-clear memory. But he isn't seeing it from a third-person perspective.
Right, he's fully in it.
He is looking through the eyes of a woman named Lotus. And Lotus isn't in a ruined Gothic castle. She wakes up on the Salvation. And the Salvation is a massive, ring-shaped spaceship orbiting a moon.
The environmental whiplash there is just immediate. Through Lotus's eyes, the reader is force-fed this hyper-detailed pre-apocalyptic origin story. We learn that Lotus's father, Minister Hagate, was a high-ranking official at the Tokyo Alternate Space Cooperative.
Wait, I need to stop you there. We spent 25 chapters in a dystopian wasteland with swords, magic, and demons.
Yeah.
Suddenly, we're on a high-tech spaceship built by the Tokyo Alternate Space Cooperative. I mean, doesn't that just shatter the illusion? If I pick up a dark fantasy book and halfway through the author tells me it's actually a space opera, I might feel a little cheated.
Yeah.
How does that not completely ruin the narrative trust?
It's the ultimate tightrope walk. And you're right, it could easily feel like a cheap gimmick or bait and switch, but it doesn't, because Kirk doesn't abandon the fantasy rules. He actually provides the underlying biological and physical mechanics for them. He leans hard into Arthur C. Clarke's famous law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. For example, when Lotus is walking through the spaceship, we see it uses an adaptive particle emulsion.
Yes. The gray blood of the ship.
Exactly. It's this gray, liquid solution that acts as the ship's circulatory system. When the hull is breached, this emulsion rushes to the wound, solidifies, and repairs the metallic structure. It's basically an incredibly advanced swarm of microscopic nanites.
Oh, wow.
And the moment the reader sees this, the magic of the wasteland suddenly makes complete sense. The Vitae energy that Kurien and the other survivors use to heal wounds and fight isn't mystical at all.
It's the leftover nanotech.
Yes. The author is mechanically linking the fantasy magic system to this pre-apocalyptic technology. The Vitae is just an airborne biological remnant of that nanite emulsion, and it's responding to the biometric signatures of the evolved survivors.
That is brilliant.
Kirk takes the magic out of the fantasy by revealing its hard scientific mechanism. He justifies the genre shift by making it the exact answer to the book's central mysteries.
That is so satisfying as a reader. It really rewards you for paying attention to the details earlier in the book. And the chapter doesn't just stop at, like, an encyclopedia entry on nanotech. It delivers this massive cinematic action sequence. We find out that Lotus's father didn't just build a spaceship, he built an alternate space drive core.
Which is a huge problem.
A massive problem. Because when they turn this engine on, it doesn't just move them through space. It literally ruptures the dimensional veil. It tears a hole between the physical universe and the void.
And this is where the horror elements really bleed into the sci-fi setting. By punching a hole in the dimensional fabric, the drive allows entities from the void, which the characters perceive as demons, to breach the physical hull of the Salvation. It is just an absolute massacre in the sterile, high-tech corridors of the ship.
And who is standing between these newly birthed demons and the crew? A man named Atasho. And if you've been reading the book up to this point, that name hits like a truck.
Oh, completely changes everything.
In Kurien's timeline, Atasho is worshipped as an infallible god. He's the mythical founder of the dominant religion, Santerrie, a legendary figure of pure magic.
But through the unvarnished reality of the memory, we see the mechanical truth. Atasho isn't a deity at all. He is simply a highly capable man on a spaceship, desperately fighting off a boarding party of void creatures using swirling amaranthine and white energy fields.
So the entire religion is based on a misunderstanding.
Exactly. The religion of the wasteland is just a massive game of multi-generational telephone, warping a frantic, bloody battle for survival into divine myth.
So to escape the demons, the ship's AI initiates an emergency dimensional jump. And this sequence is conceptually mind-bending. As the drive spins up, Lotus experiences the multiverse folding in on itself. She sees infinite versions of herself across parallel realities, collapsing into one unified consciousness.
But the math is wrong.
The math is horribly wrong. The AI realizes too late that their exit vector intersects directly with a moon. The Salvation slams into the atmosphere, completely shattering. The ring-shaped ship breaks apart, creating this massive, fiery halo of debris raining down onto the planet.
And here is where it gets really interesting. That fiery halo is the actual origin of the cataclysm that the wasteland survivors speak of. The quote-unquote light in the heavens that the post-apocalyptic religion prays to isn't a divine miracle or a magical event. They are literally worshiping the catastrophic orbital decay and atmospheric breakup of a doomed spacecraft.
It completely reframes everything. You realize you aren't just reading a survival story. You are on an archaeological excavation of a broken reality. But, knowing the world is a lie doesn't make surviving it any easier for Kurien.
If anything, it makes it worse.
Exactly. Understanding the cosmic scale of this tragedy makes his immediate micro-scale reality feel even more suffocating.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the book, this is where the brilliance of Kirk's pacing comes in. We go from the macro-scale destruction of a moon and the rupturing of the multiverse, and the very second the memory ends, we snap violently back into the claustrophobic dread of Kurien's damaged mind. The vastness of space is immediately replaced by the dirt and paranoia of the wasteland.
Right. So Kurien wakes up on the ground. His brain is still short-circuiting from experiencing the death of a woman thousands of years ago. He turns to Sharina, who is tethered to his nervous system, who has been watching over his unconscious body, and he tries to explain the sheer magnitude of what he just witnessed.
He wants to tell her everything.
Yeah, the spaceship, the nanotech, the truth about their entire religion. He expects her to be shocked, or at least to call him crazy. But Sharina just deflects.
She shuts the conversation down entirely. And if you've been paying attention throughout the earlier chapters, the author carefully placed these subtle behavioral cues, indicating that Sharina has a hidden past.
She definitely knows more than she's letting on.
Right. She possesses knowledge about the ancient world that a typical survivor shouldn't have. So when Kurien presses her on the vision, her deliberate evasion feels like a massive betrayal, especially given their biological tether.
And that rejection is the spark that ignites the absolute horror of the chapter's climax. I mean, Kurien's psyche is already a war zone. He's carrying the trauma of 12 years of torture, the grief for a wife who didn't exist, and now the downloaded consciousness of Lotus. When Sharina shuts him out, the emotional instability triggers a hostile takeover of his own body.
It's terrifying.
It's described as this dark, jealous entity. Maybe it's the corrupted shadow of Lotus's downloaded consciousness, or a manifestation of his own demon seizing the controls.
This is where we see the ultimate terror of false memory and mental hijacking. It's a profound loss of bodily autonomy. Kurien's legitimate feelings of confusion and betrayal are weaponized by this dark persona.
The execution of this scene is just suffocating to read. You are trapped inside Kurien's head, screaming with him as he watches his own body move without his permission. His biological magic activates involuntarily, his feral eye overrides his vision, and his hand violently morphs into this metallic bladed claw. And Sharina, completely unaware of the shift, turns her back to him.
The internal monologue here is so chilling. The author writes the dark persona as the sadistic, matronly voice guiding Kurien's physical movements. It twists his deep affection for Sharina into a venomous, jealous rage.
Because it wants him all to itself.
Exactly. The entity wants to isolate Kurien. It wants to murder the only person keeping him anchored to reality to prove she is unworthy so that the dark persona can have the vessel of his mind entirely to itself.
It's agonizing. He is a prisoner behind his own eyes. He watches his clawed hand rise up behind her neck. He notes that the single drop of his blood falls to the dirt blood that, because of their bond, is the only thing that could heal her if she gets hurt.
The irony there is so dark.
The metallic blade traces the ridge of her spine. It catches the leather strap of her clothing. The pacing slows down to a crawl, and you, as the reader, are forced to watch this impending violence, knowing that Kurien is entirely helpless to stop his own hand from severing the spine of the woman he is tethered to.
And this raises the fundamental question of the narrative. What are the actual stakes of this story? Kirk uses the sci-fi and fantasy elements to ask a deeply intimate question. Is the true horror the mercenaries and the monsters hunting them? Or is the greatest threat the betrayal of one's own mind and biology?
Yeah.
By ending the sequence on this note of terrifying, micro-scale horror, the author proves that the battle isn't really about saving a broken world. It's about fighting to save the self.
And honestly, that is exactly why this book demands to be read. What makes this entire sequence so memorable isn't just the satisfaction of the sci-fi twist. It seamlessly weaves visceral action with deep emotional stakes. It forces you to consider questions about human identity. I mean, if you strip away your genuine memories and replace them with the downloaded trauma of a scientist from a high-tech spaceship, and layer that over the hallucinated memories of a 12-year torture victim, What is actually left of you?
That's the million-dollar question.
Is identity just the sum of the data on the hard drive, or is there a core operating system that remains?
And Kirk respects the reader enough to let them wrestle with that. The transition from a sword-wielding wasteland to the sterile corridors of the Tokyo Ultimate Space Cooperative, it demands your full attention. But if you engage with it, if you look at how the nanotech explains the magic and how the orbital crash explains the religion, it completely redefines the entire reading experience. You want to immediately go back to page 1 just to see the architectural framework you missed.
Oh, absolutely. So let's take a breath and recap this incredible narrative arc. We started down in the muck of a ruined world, hiding from enemies. Then, through the crack of a tortured mind, we zoomed out to a massive spaceship orbiting a moon, witnessing the literal rupture of the dimensional veil and the origin of a planet's destruction.
A massive shift in scale.
Right. And then, seamlessly, we zoomed all the way back down into the terrifying claustrophobia of a single man's hijacked biology, as his own bladed hand hovers over the neck of the person he is bonded to.
The scope is just breathtaking. It manages to balance cosmic catastrophe with intimate psychological violation. And the mechanics of that world building leave us with a lot to consider regarding the rules of the universe Kirk has created.
It really does. Going back to the very beginning of our conversation, looking in the mirror and seeing someone else's eyes, feeling their memories overwrite your own. We've talked about how the Spire acts as a network downloading Lotus's data into Kurien's brain. But the implications of that technology, combined with the magic system, are pretty staggering.
They really are. And if we look closely at the mechanical truth revealed in Chapter 26, it leaves us with a profound, almost terrifying final thought to explore.
Okay, I'm ready.
We learned that Minister Haggate's alternate space drive didn't just move a ship, it violently ruptured the physical veil between universes, allowing entities from the void into the physical world. It literally broke the barrier of reality. But if we look at Kurien, a man whose physical brain is currently a war zone, battling for control against the downloaded consciousness of Lotus, the ghosts of his hallucinated family, and this dark, jealous entity hijacking his motor functions, we have to wonder about the true extent of that rupture.
Wait, what do you mean? What else did the drive break?
Well, we assume the cataclysm only tore a hole in physical space. But if human consciousness, if memory and personality can be downloaded, weaponized, and transmitted across time like a virus, did the alternate space drive also rupture the veil between souls?
Oh my.
Right. If the ghosts of a crashed pre-apocalyptic spaceship can reach across the centuries to possess the biology of a survivor in the wasteland, the boundaries of identity are completely erased. And if our minds are that permeable, how can we ever be entirely sure that the thoughts in our head, the emotions we feel for the people we love, or even the face we see in the mirror, truly belong to us alone?